Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Vimit. In this playlist, we are going to learn everything about Git. So in this particular video, we are going to learn about what is version control system, what is Git, all the fundamentals about Git, and we are going to install it. Why we need to learn Git? Because Git is everywhere. In tech industry, it doesn't matter. You are backend developer, front-end developer, in DevOps, or in any other tech musician. If you are writing a code, then you need to learn Git. Let's start with version control system. So what is version control system and why should you care about it? Suppose you are a graphic designer who's working on some image. Let's say you create this directory, Amazon Design, and you saved your work under design.svg. Now you present this in front of your team and your team said, oh, it's well and good, but your team suggests you to do some changes. You went to that platform, whatever you are using like Canva, and you did your changes and you saved the image again under design.svg. Now you present again it in front of your team. Your team said it's good, but they think the old one is better. So now you have to do those changes again. Maybe you don't remember what you did last time. Now pause this video for a second and think about it. What you are going to do so that you don't have to do these changes again. Maybe you think about one of these solutions. Maybe you think of the solution like you will copy the directory every time with new version. Suppose initially you named it Amazon Design V1 and then you export your image as design.svg, and before starting new work you created a new directory Amazon Design V2 svg and you import this image. After doing your work you export it in Amazon Design V2. So you're going to do this every time whenever you have to do new changes. Maybe you think about another solution where you are going to use the same directory, but you are going to export the image with design v1.svg, design v2.svg. It's absolutely fine. Or maybe you think about some another solution. If you think about some another solution, please feel free to comment it so that I can look. The problem with these solutions that it's easy to mess up the changes. Maybe you override the versions, or maybe you forgot to create a directory. So it's possible that you can easily mess up the changes. Now, next problem is suppose your team hired a new graphic designer and both of you have to work together. Now again pause for a second and think how you are going to collaborate with your teammate. Now one of the solution maybe you think about, you can create a shared folder in your machine and then you will give another person, suppose it's me, the access of that shared folder, and then you both can use the same technique that you are using, design v1, design v2, or maybe the directory one, and we both can work on same project. So in both of your solutions you already build a basic version control system. So in a nutshell, version control system helps you to maintain the versioning of files and help you to collaborate with other people or other teammates. There's a lot of problems that can happen with this system. The one we already discussed, like to mess up with the changes. To deal with this problem so that we can easily maintain the versioning of files and can easily collaborate, there's a centralized version control system, and this is from a very long time. What is centralized version control system? In centralized version control system, we have a shared repository which is sit on some remote server, and we have different clients, and clients can pull a code from shared repository and then can push back to remote server, and all the history of the files sit in this shared repository, but it doesn't exist in these developers. So the history is only exist in this shared repository. The problem with this system is this shared repository, because this can cause single point of failure. If this repository down, no one can work. So to solve this problem, we have distributed version control system. In distributed version control system, client also check out all the history of data. If you see, if we have versions here, we have versions in our computer A also. So this is a local machine where all the versions exist. So it's complete image of this remote computer. In case of failure of remote computer, we can easily replicate new remote server from this local machine. After learning about centralized version control system and distributed version control system, now let's get started with Git. Git is also a distributed version control system. It is very important to understand the fundamentals of Git, how Git save files. But before starting that, let's see how centralized version control system, which is performs, how it save files. These are the commits over time. If you see like version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4. So what perforce do? Suppose you have file A, file B, file C. So when you do some changes in file A, it only saves the difference between that file. So over the period, if you want to see how your files look like, so suppose take an example of file A. So if you want to see the file A, what it looks like in version 4, so you will took the base file A, which is in version A, then you will combine all the differences and then you will give back the file A. In similar way, suppose like if in version 3 I want to see all the files, so what we will do, we will take file A, combine all the differences and give back file A. We'll take file B, combine all the differences, in this case in only delta 1, and give back file B. In this case we will combine file C, delta 1, delta 2, and then we'll give back file C. Now see how Git saved files. Git doesn't think in this way. So Git basically take a snapshot of files and save the references of those files. So in this case, suppose we have version 1 where we have file A, file B, file C. So suppose if you did some changes in file A, so it will save the another version, version 2, where it will point to the reference of that file, which is A1. And suppose in version 2, we didn't change anything in file B, so it will point to the same file reference like B. And in C, if we did some change, it will save like C1. So if you see in version 3, it didn't change anything in A1, but it did some changes in B1, so it will save like B1, C2. So it's a complete snapshot. In version 3, if you want to check out version 3, you will get version 3 directly with the saved file references. Another thing about Git is operation. So every operation in Git is locally. So basically you don't need to go to remote server again and again. If you remember, in centralized version control system, we have shared repository where you have to push code continuously from remote server, and if server fails, you cannot connect to remote server. So in case of Git, because the changes are locally, you don't need to go to remote server, and 90% of the time you can do the operation locally on your machine. Suppose you are in airplane or you are in train and you have some important work to do, you can just do the changes locally on your machine, and when you will be in contact of internet, you can just push your code to remote server. You can commit code, you can see the history, most of the work you can do locally. Everything in Git is checksum before it's saved, and later point Git refer to that checksum. The mechanism that Git used for checksum is SHA-1 hash. It's a 40 character hexadecimal value. And it's based on content of file or directory. You will see these hash values everywhere in the Git. Because Git don't save the content with file name, it will use it with this hash value. When you do any action in Git, nearly all of them only add a data to Git database. So it's very difficult for a Git to lose information. It's possible that you can lose the information before committing a code, but once you commit a code to Git database, then it's impossible that you cannot lose the information. Pay attention now. Here's the main thing to remember if you want the rest of your learning process to go smoothly. Git has 3 main states that your file can reside: modified, staged, and committed. Modified means you did some changes in working directory, but you didn't stage those changes and you didn't commit those changes. Stage means you modified files and you prepared them to commit in staging area. Suppose you modified 2 files, file 2 and file 3, but you stage only file 3. So your file 3 is ready to commit, but your file 2 is still in working directly and is not staged yet. So staging means you are just about to commit and you move all those files that you want to commit in staging area. Commit means you took the files in staging area and then you move them to Git database. Let's take an example. We have file 1, file 2, file 3. You did changes in file 2, file 3, and then you stage only file 3. After this staging, you commit that code and move file 3 to commit area. Now after that, when you see your work directory, you will see that file 1 say no change, file 3 say no change, and file 2 still in modified state. We will look into later when we will work on Git commands, and you will see all these changes. But the point here is for you to remember that we have 3 areas. Modified is in working directory, staging means ready to commit, and .git directory means you already commit the changes and your directory is up to date. There are a lot of different ways to use Git, but in this playlist we are going to use command line tool because there's a lot of different UI tools where you can use Git, but the problem is like there's not a full-fledged functionality in those tools. That's why I prefer to use command line tool to use Git. I mentioned a link in description so you can install a Git, depends upon your operating system. So if you can look here, install Git on Windows, install Git on Mac, install Git on Linux. For Mac user, it's pre-installed after some versions of operating system, so maybe even you don't need to install it. After installation, if you type git version, and if you can see the version 2.33.1 or maybe some another version, depends on which one you are installing. If you see this, it means Git is already installed. But if it didn't install, it will be look like this: git command not found. So it means Git didn't install. In this scenario, maybe you can comment it down and I will try to help you, or maybe you can just Google it and try to fix that issue. We need Git for coming videos, so please make sure that you have successfully installed it. And don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more great content. Thank you for watching.